Good evening and a warm welcome to you and your money. I'm Bryan Hurst. This evening we are focusing on investments. Over 350 years ago, Scottish Enlightenment thinker Adam Ferguson warned of the dangers of excessive national debt. More recently, historian Neil Ferguson repurposed this idea into what he calls Ferguson's Law, stating that any great power that spends more on debt servicing than on defense risk structures decline. Last year, the United States breached Ferguson's Law for the first time since 1934. Meanwhile, Trump's approach of using economic policy as a strategic tool is weakening the US dollar and prompting increased defense spending in Europe. Joining him this evening is David Shapiro, Chief Global Equity Strategist at Sasfin Wealth. David, good evening and welcome to you on the program. David, it's quite amazing that since Trump has come to power, we've seen so much havoc in the markets. He's created mayhem. And the markets, the currencies, all over the place. One day this, one day that. He shoots from the hip, then he gets representation, then he steps back. How are you dealing with this in terms of your job to invest money for individuals and to put smiles on their face? And as you know, we put smiles on the face when markets are moving up. We have no control over markets. How are you dealing with it at this moment?
Not well. It's very confusing. And I think the deep worry is that when people are confused, when they haven't got confidence, they stand back and they do nothing. And that's the worst thing that can happen in any economy, is people are not active, are not doing things. They're not building factories, they're not spending. Consumers feel the same thing. So you described it as chaotic. It's that. It's exactly that. No one knows from day to day what's going to happen tomorrow. And even if you're trying to understand Trump's tariff policies, there's no certainty. Next month we'll review it. Yes, we'll hold back or for a month or so, and then we'll see again. So no one can function under those rules, Bryan. And if you look at the markets, if you look at the US markets, at the beginning of the year, or even going back to when Trump was elected, everybody was celebrating.
We were euphoric. I mean, November, December, January, everything's looking good. Interest rates are going to come down. We were all so euphoric.
Yeah. And now everything's gone the other way. What's happened as well is that the money's going from America now to Europe and to China, simply because it's an alternative. We don't understand America. Europe seems to be settling down. It's trying to find a base. It's not good. It's not great. Even China, if you looked at the numbers that came out today, there's still problems. They've got deflation. Deflation is bad, because what happens with deflation, people also hold back on their spending, because they say, why buy now if next week it's going to come down? Yeah. So all around the world there is this uncertainty, and that's why you've got markets in such a lot of chaos.
David, do you subscribe to to the possibility of deflation in China?
I don't know Chinese markets, but yes, what it means is that they're producing more than they absorbing themselves, and also on the world as well, what they're dumping on the world. So they're a producing nation. They've got to get consumption up there. If consumption doesn't go up, you get this imbalance. And then the rest of the world imposes tariffs because you're dumping the excess supply on their markets.
Yeah.
That's the basis of Trump, is saying, you're producing so much steel, you're knocking the steel market, we're going to impose tariffs on that to try and stabilize it as well.
David, last time Trump was in, he gauged the performance of his term into how the economy and how the markets are doing. He must realize that the steps he's taking are firstly negative maybe for inflation and having effect on the markets. He doesn't care?
He doesn't care. You're dealing with somebody that is almost impossible to read. An egotist, narcissist, whatever adjective you want to use to describe him. So it's very difficult. He's a man who doesn't take advice. He knows everything. So you're dealing with and he's got the support. He's got his support base, and he doesn't listen to anybody else. He's only got half of America that voted for him. He doesn't care about the other half. And that's a big concern. It's a very big worry. He doesn't care what Europe think about him. He doesn't care what Canada think about him or anything like that, or Mexico. He doesn't care about those people. So to sum it up, that's the kind of president you've got. America, we always regarded as a policeman of the world, someone that we can turn to in difficult times. Not so. So we don't know where he's going. We don't know when the adults in the room are actually going to stand up and say, okay, it's enough. At the moment, we're not seeing. Even, you remember the Three Stooges? you remember the Three Stooges? Well, without being that disparaging, when you look at Besant, who's the Secretary of the Treasury, Lutnick, who's the Secretary of Commerce, and Trump, you've got the Three Stooges. So it's a comedy act.
So, David, that doesn't let you off the hook.
No.
Because you're still looking after money. You've got clients looking to you, asking where to, what must I do next. You become a little bit of a psychologist and a nanny because they're not sure themselves. No one can know. So what action are you taking? If you're sitting with cash, if you're sitting with shares, are you taking any action? You said the worst thing you could do. You said the worst thing you can do is do nothing.
Yes, yes.
So what are you doing?
No, we're staying where we are. Nothing has changed. When I dispel the noise and start to look at the underlying businesses and say, okay, get rid of the politics. How the business is doing. You've heard us enough times talking about AI, the theme of AI, the amount of spending that's taking place in those areas, having a look at other areas as well, in the pharmaceutical areas, even on the spending areas. There's sufficient good news there to keep us in the market. The only caveat that I have, the only qualification is what I've been saying to you, is what I worry about is if we push this too much, then confidence starts to fall. We've already seen signs there, and I'm going to give you what I think is going to happen. Confidence starts to fall, people start to hold back. What I think is going to happen, Bryan, is that when you heard Jay Powell, the Fed chairman, was very reluctant to talk about reducing rates further. In December already he was giving us a warning, gave us another warning in January as well, just trying to see how things work out. But what's happening now, I think there are concerns that the economy is starting to slow quite dramatically. We haven't seen it in the employment numbers yet, but already the market is building in 3 rate cuts. A couple of weeks ago, 0 rate cuts were built in, now 3. And I think the first one's going to come a lot sooner than we expect. Everyone is saying second half of the year. I think it'll come within a month or 2. You will get reduction in interest rates, and that continuing in order to prop up the economy and try and offset what Trump is doing, the damage that he's doing.
David, normally when in a bull market, when good news comes out, shares go up, and when bad news comes out on a company, the share just stays flat.
Yes.
In a bear market, it's the other way around. Good news comes out, keeps the share flat, and bad news knocks the shares.
Yes.
We've had enormous knocks on markets. I think of Nvidia, not that I want to deal with Nvidia as a stock, but example, you felt the results weren't bad at all, and the market didn't like them. But so going forward, where are we? Good news, markets go up. Bad news, markets come up.
We're in exact nervousness, caution. And that's what's happened, is that even the good news now is not having the effect. We've got to watch. I'm not bearish, but you've got to be cautious. And that's why I think the Fed will come in and say, okay, enough. Enough of this. The authorities, the administration are not in control. You've got a huge amount of dislike building up for Elon Musk and what he's doing. We don't know whether he is making the savings he says he is. They're making a lot of noise. They're upsetting a lot of people, who've been there for a long time. I'm talking, those who actually run the economy. I don't know what the exact description is, like director generals here. And I think people, even Congress is getting very concerned. The Congress people are getting very concerned about what's happening, that this is just taking place without going through the proper channels. So I think somewhere along the line, things will stabilize. But you're dead right. You've got to watch with caution now.
David, last week's job numbers, was that concerning you about a slowdown, or not?
Not these job numbers. It's the next ones that we're starting to worry about. What was interesting as well, even the layoffs in government, this DOGE Department of Government Efficiency, even though the layoffs haven't really had an effect. And I think the job numbers were okay. Powell came in after that.
Yes,
and he was quite conciliatory and saying, they're decent. The US economy is very steady. That lifted the market. But he's got to keep on along that kind of message, and we've got to get confirmation that things are okay.
David, how do you interpret gold going up to over 2,950? Are we going to break that 3,000 cents?
That's a sign of concern. That is a sign of concern that investors are saying, hold on, we don't know what's happening to the dollar, we don't know what's happening to the US economy. Let's park it in gold. And the value of 2.9 plus is a sure sign. Listen, this has come up from $2,600. I'm not a gold bull. And
although your father was.
My father was.
Your father had everyone in the stock market.
Yeah.
Archie, your dad, buy gold.
Yeah.
Have you still got that badge?
No, we can't find it. I think I don't know where it is. But he believed in gold. He was from that era where gold was a hugely important.
I mean, we had about 18 listed mines in those
we
days.
had more, 40.
40.
Yeah. So, Bryan, it is that is a sign of worry in the market, a sign of concern that things are not, that there are uncertainties.
Dave, let's get back to the Magnificent Seven, S&P and NASDAQ, and now with Europe and China. Are you seeing a switch? There
was the switch to, that wasn't a bad sign. That Xi Jinping, the Chinese premier, did an about turn and suddenly he started cozying up to the big tech companies. It was one of the reasons we got out or kept away from it. We were very concerned about where it was going, but we've seen from Alibaba, they've got their AI models. Tencent are coming out with their AI models, and there's been a bit of a pickup. Can it follow through? I don't know. I think the deflation numbers in China have kind of worried the market that they're getting that. It's problematical. They're not getting the momentum that they want to see. And the momentum has to be in the consumers, not in the production side of it. In other words, not making goods, but rather buying and consuming goods. And we haven't seen that come through as strong as we would like. And why do we like it as well? If people are consuming, they go out, and the Chinese are consuming, they go out and they travel. We've seen a pickup in Chinese travel numbers, but we want them to go out and buy the goods, the LVMHs or the L'Oreals or the motor car manufacturers. We want them to spend.
But David, you did mention to me when you and I were chatting last week that there has been a slight pickup in the purchase. You were a bit surprised, actually, how quickly it actually turned around.
Yes, there's a pickup in numbers. We want it to be sustainable. Not just you want it to build on itself.
Well, we're going to take a break. We've got a lot of things still to talk. Got emails for David. Stay tuned. We'll be back shortly.